So business is risky. 95% of all entrepreneurs fail to make 200K a year in profit. But you know who else fails? 95% of people who take the traditional path. What is going on, YouTube? Welcome to my new channel. And today we're going to be talking about 5 things that I wish I knew at the age of 20. Now, in case you're wondering why you should listen to what I have to say, I paid off all of my student debt before even graduating through the use of my own business, and currently manage several income sources that make me in excess of $200,000 a year. If you want to learn about how you can replicate my journey as well as follow along as we scale to greater things, then you're going to want to stay tuned. Consider subscribing to this channel if you want, and hit the like button because all that helps with the YouTube algorithm. So with that out of the way, let's jump right into the first thing, and that is going to be everything is risky. Now, if you are an Asian like me, as you can see over here, if you grew up in that kind of household, chances are when you were young, you have been told by either your parents, your teachers, everyone around you that taking the traditional way is the safest way to go. And what do I mean by this? Well, go to school, do well in school. In Singapore, that was get a scholarship, go to university, and then get a stable job. So stability is something that is really sold in the Asian culture, and that was one thing that I realized was a myth, because at the end of the day, everything was risky. So as I mentioned in the intro, you might think that 95% or 99% of all businesses or entrepreneurs fail. But the same thing can be said for people on the traditional path. What is success really, or what is failure really? So let's say you might want to make $200,000, $300,000, $500,000 a year. 95% to 99% of employees on the traditional path fail to achieve that. So what gives? That is risky as well. Furthermore, you're also giving away leverage in the form of your ability to choose your lifestyle to an external power. In this case, it could be your employer, it could be the government if you are on a scholarship or something like that. So how I learned this was the hard way. I was personally set up really well to take on the traditional path. I went to this good school in Singapore. If you Google the top Oxbridge feeder schools in the world, so this is basically a group of high schools that send the most students or graduates to Oxbridge, then my school is somewhere on that list. But without speaking too much about that, I was on this path of, going to a good school, getting good grades, finishing my A-levels, and then hoping through a range of different extracurriculars to land a coveted government scholarship, which will have guaranteed, I tell you, guaranteed not only that your school fees in overseas universities or locally will be completely paid off, you will also have a guaranteed job for 6 years, as well as in popular culture, people believe that there is a fast track to promotion in that career. So all of that looks like a really nicely planned, stable path that I was looking at, and all of that came apart when I joined the military. When I joined the military, you could go into one of 3 pathways. You could become a commander as an officer, you could become a sergeant, which is slightly in between the officers and the men, and then you could just be a normal man, which is what I got allocated to. And when I was in that position, I realized that, maybe trusting the system too much and trying your best at achieving their metrics wasn't necessarily the smartest thing to do, because after all, I have been doing this all along, gotten rejection after rejection, and also run into a bit of a status problem when in the army, because as you know, guys from high school like to banter, compare where they're at. There's a saying in Singapore that when guys go into the army, that is literally all they can talk about. But my point is, that was where I realized, okay, my status was down, I was getting rejected left, right, and center, even though I thought I was doing the right things. On that note, I realized that taking the traditional path was risky as well, and it's always good to have an alternative path if the traditional one doesn't work out. So personally, I went ahead to learn copywriting, web design, and those kind of Shopify stores. Those are really hot in the day, like 2017, and went ahead and offered these services to business owners. And from there, started making some money that eventually paid off my college debt. So now it's time to move on to the second thing on the list, which is going to be to get off autopilot. Now, if you have been raised in an Asian country like myself, then a lot of the times we are taught to stay on autopilot, follow the system, trust the process, just work hard, get good grades, and you will be fine. But once I went to university here in the UK, armed with that perspective that I got from the army, I realized that this couldn't be further from the truth, because this was a stage of life at about the age of 21 where I had to be really intentional about what I did. And if I had gotten that coveted scholarship, I may not have had to do just that. But when I looked around, there were 2 groups of people. There are the people who were, there were really 3 groups of people, right? There are people who are partying and not really doing anything with their lives. There were the people who were really intentional about what they were doing. So there was the career career-driven types and the types that maybe they wanted to start a business or even a YouTube channel. And then there will be the NPCs or the bots who are just following the script. So for example, what would you do after you finish your bachelor's? Well, I don't know, go get a master's. And then what after that? I don't know, get another degree. So that was the thinking that a lot of people had and never questioned why they were doing that. So if you ask them, well, why are you doing that? Well, it would guarantee a good job. But do you see the problem with that? Because nowadays, none of that is guaranteed. You could be left without a job even if you're highly qualified and unintentional about it. And that was when I realized it was such a blessing that I was put in that position while in the military that I questioned the worth of staying on autopilot and following what was given to me. So that was the second thing on the list. Now let's move on to number 3, which is none other than hardship is good. Now, there are many people who say different things about this. There are people who call this the FTM or fuck this moment. That is a moment in your life that you might experience where you go, all right, this is enough. I need to get out of this situation and I'm going to take action to make a change. For me personally, that was in the army where, again, I was allocated to this rank. You had to play this really subservient role, you know, yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir, and all of this kind of stuff. And on top of all of that, most of my other peers from the school that I went to back in high school had gone on to things like command school. So they're training to be sergeants, training to be officers. And some of them had this really, I would say, elitist air about them. They would say like, oh yeah, so now I'm this rank, I can tell you to do push-ups because that's just how the army works. If a superior asks you to do push-ups, you kind of have to do it. And of course, when it comes to this kind of moment, there's always a girl in the mix. And that was exactly what I was going after at that point. I was into this junior that I had, a junior that I knew back in high school. And basically, she was also familiar with another one of my closer friends in my class. And what happened was really vivid. During that period, it was just a really dark time. I was ranting about the army, being a little bitch about it, to be honest, being emotional and everything like that. This guy, he's 6 foot tall, one of the highest tier government scholarships lined up. You know, he's in command school, so they were kind of getting it on. And one of these days, I was going out with this girl and she had invited this guy to come along after we met. And so this was in a place called Holland Village. I don't know whether you might have been to Singapore. This is some really quaint area that that youngsters like to go. And when this guy showed up, I was like, what is going on here? Then the next thing he said was that, oh, how are you doing? Because we both knew each other. Yeah, I'm in so-and-so unit. Oh, that means I can tell you to do push-ups. And I was like, okay, this is where we're at now. I don't have anything. I didn't have the resources. I certainly didn't have the height or the looks, and I didn't have the status or, in this case, some obvious potential earning power. So that was really a point in time where I decided, okay, I need to do something about this. I'm going to go it on my own. And this event I can attribute to the starting of my first business, which was the copywriting agency, which paid everything off and still to date is making over 10K a month every single month. And also this led me on to get my first job in banking. It also led me on to create another YouTube channel that I made on cryptocurrency and land a contract with a startup through there. So all of these achievements and the fact that I'm making over $200,000 a year right now goes back to the fact that I had to go through hardship and had that chip on my shoulder to bring me to where I'm at. So if you're experiencing hardship or you are in such a dark place, especially at the age of 18 to 19, know that this is good for you in a long run if you choose to deal with it constructively. The fourth thing on the list is going to be don't waste your energy. And this one actually I just learned recently. I'm currently 26 years old. And at 26, let me tell you, if you're 18 to 19 years old, you just have so much energy. You can keep banging out night after night, 4 hours of sleep, no issue whatsoever. In the army, I was doing work until 2 a.m., waking up at 5 a.m. and doing that for something like 6 months before I eventually completed my military service. So when I was a 19 to 20-year-old, that was actually possible. Whereas now, no way, man. Like, no way I'm going to be able to do that. So understand that when you reach a later age, you will realize that, energy is limited. Commitments in your life will want to pull your energy in all these different directions, but it's your duty to say no to the things that do not matter to you, because ultimately where you focus your energy is going to be where you end up. Once I realized that the traditional path was not working out, I started taking my foot off the accelerator, contrary to what we would have been told back in high school, to just pedal to the metal, do everything you can to do your best, whatever you do. Well, kind of, but Not quite, because there's an art to allocating your energy to the highest leverage tasks possible. And that means focusing on the tasks that will give you the highest return on investment. And in that case, it was the business. So if you are, for example, working a 9 to 6 job and you already have a side hustle that's paying more than that, and that only costs you 1 to 2 hours a day, well then consider focusing your energy on that side hustle and making it a main one. So that was what I mean by don't waste your energy. And in that same vein, don't waste your energy on useless shit. I didn't waste any time whatsoever. I didn't even download the latest phone game that everyone in my army barracks was playing, because I realized that was a waste of energy. After you finish playing, you're tired anyway, but you have achieved absolutely nothing. So let's move on to the fifth thing on the list, which is going to be results are not linear, but they're also not exponential. Now, a lot of people think that, I'm just going to become an influencer. I'm just going to become the next big YouTuber or something like that. And a lot of them go into this journey with this really messed up expectation when you think that, okay, we're just going to go like this, like this, like this, and suddenly we're going to take off and go exponential. But in real life, that fails to happen more often than not. What I experienced is that there is that friction there to begin with when you first start. So the starting bit is going to be hardest. You're likely going to see no progress whatsoever. Then you might see a bit of progress, a bit of a takeoff, and then you might see a plateau for a while. For example, if this is measuring earnings, then yes, I definitely saw a plateau in earnings after a while. And then from there, you make another decision to figure out what the constraints are and how you can break that constraint. And once you break that constraint, your results start going up again. And then the same thing happens over and over again. You settle at a comfortable level, maybe you plateau at say 10K a month, and then you develop something else that breaks another constraint, and then you go to 20K a month and you stay there for a while, and then so on and so forth. So that is one way that I learned to be a bit more patient. As a 20-year-old conscript in the military, I was just super impatient on a daily basis. So I wish that I knew that things took time. All of these things like status, like resources, those will come in time. And indeed, I have not achieved everything that I wanted to achieve just yet. So all in all, if you are under the age of 20, I hope you found this video illuminating. No, I'm not talking about the lighting effect over there. And if you like this kind of content and want to learn a bit more about how you can go about replicating this entire journey of going from nothing to over 200K a year within a short span of time, then you're going to stay tuned to this channel. With all that being said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.